I'm Nora Bennett, a major in the United States Army. But if you ask my family, I'm the girl who files paperwork and prints labels for boxes of MREs. I work in military logistics and supply chain management. To the uninitiated, which includes my entire immediate family, that translates to, Nora does the boring stuff so the real soldiers can do the real work. At least, that is how my brother describes it. Every time we end up in the same backyard with a grill smoking behind us and half the family watching. This particular Saturday BBQ was no different. I had barely stepped onto the patio, wearing a faded hoodie and jeans, when I heard him. "And there she is," Marcus announced, pointing a pair of tongs at me like a weapon. The logistics clerk who probably alphabetizes beef stew packets for a living. The line got a good laugh. It always did. The kind of laugh that stings even when you tell yourself it shouldn't. I smiled. That is what I always do. I act as if it rolls right off me, even when it lands harder than I want to admit. My brother, Marcus, loves a crowd. He served 4 years in the Marines a decade ago, never seeing heavy combat. But he performed his military career like a stand-up routine. He tells stories about the Corps, as if he alone carried the entire branch on his back. The moment he sees me, the quiet sister still on active duty, he turns into a comedian with a new punchline. He leaned back in his lawn chair, beer in hand. "Hey, Nora," he shouted. "Make sure you don't get a paper cut opening that cooler. I hear the casualty rate in the supply tent is skyrocketing." The worst part was how casual it all felt. This was our family's normal. People around us nodded or chuckled, not maliciously, just accepting the version of me he had shaped for years. Non-combat. Soft. Smart in a bookish way, but not tough enough to count. I grabbed a water, feeling the condensation cool my palm. I told myself that none of it mattered. I knew who I was. I knew what I had earned. But embarrassment has a way of creeping up on you like heat rising under a uniform collar. My mom called me over to help set the table. I could feel the looks trailing behind me. Not cruel ones, just small glances that said they believed every word Marcus had just tossed out. There she goes, the safe one. The one who stays behind the wire. The one who never gets her boots dirty. If only they knew that my boots were still drying in my trunk from a field inspection in a muddy forward operating base just 48 hours ago. But I never corrected them. I never explained the long nights or the classified missions or the pressure that sat on my shoulders like weight plates. If you try to explain strategic logistics to someone who has already decided it is meaningless, you just end up sounding defensive. So I let it sit. I let Marcus talk. I let the moment sting. I stood beside the grill, passing out plates while he punched the same tired joke again about how I should label the burgers since I am so good at labeling everything else. Everyone laughed. I laughed too, even though my stomach tightened a little more each time. I knew it was easier to let them think what they wanted. It was safer to keep the real story tucked away. Besides, part of me knew something they didn't. There was a guest coming tonight. Someone, Marcus, was desperate to impress, and I had a feeling that when he arrived, the narrative was going to shift. The thing about labels is, once your family gives you one, it tends to stick. I was the quiet one, the rule follower, the bookworm. Marcus was the tough one, the leader, the war hero, by self-proclamation. From the time we were kids, our roles were handed to us like uniforms we never got to choose. He climbed trees. I read books under them. He broke bones. I made the honor roll. When I got accepted to West Point, my mom cried. Not out of pride, out of fear. "You're too gentle for that," she had said. "You'll get eaten alive." My dad muttered something about me Surviving boot camp in spreadsheets. Marcus clapped me on the back and said, "Don't worry, sis. You'll be the best paper pusher they've ever had. Someone needs to order the toilet paper, right?" I knew he thought he was being funny, but it felt like a dismissal, not support. Even as I packed for the academy, there was this lingering sense that no one really believed I'd make it. Not because I wasn't capable, but because they couldn't picture me doing anything that didn't fit the version of me they had created. At graduation, I stood in full dress uniform, gold bars gleaming. My family showed up late and sat near the back. Afterward, my dad handed me a card that said, "Congratulations on your promotion to office manager." He chuckled. Marcus laughed too. I smiled like it didn't sting, like it wasn't another brick on a pile that had been growing for years. They didn't come to the promotion ceremony when I made captain. I didn't even tell them about it until a week later. My mom said, "That's nice, honey." My dad said, "Captain of what? The supply closet?" Marcus said nothing. Just sent a thumbs-up emoji in the family group chat. I stopped expecting anything more. At family gatherings, I was always the side note. The "oh yeah, Nora's still in the army, right?" moment squeezed between stories of Marcus's time in basic training. He had stories. I had silence. They asked about his buddies, his drills, and his rifle. No one ever asked me what a successful logistics operation meant. No one ever wanted to know how many missions I kept alive with good planning and clean execution. It wasn't flashy. It didn't look like combat on a movie screen. So it didn't count. There was one Christmas when I brought a meritorious service medal I'd received for an emergency operation in Qatar. I left it on the mantle, just to see if anyone would notice. My uncle asked if it was Marcus's. When I said it was mine, he looked confused, then went back to his story about boot camp in the 80s. I took it home the next morning and never brought anything like it again. It wasn't just the jokes or the lack of interest. It was the way they looked right through what I was trying to become. As if no matter how hard I worked, I'd never measure up to the imaginary standard they had set with Marcus. They saw a uniform, but not the weight of responsibility it carried. They heard logistics and assumed it meant coffee runs and inventory lists. Not joint operations. Not rapid response. Not classified missions moving critical supplies under fire. I learned early on that some people only respect what they can understand. And if they can't understand your role, they'll shrink it into something they can laugh at. My family didn't mean harm, but the damage didn't need to be intentional to be real. Every joke chipped away a little more. Every shrug pushed me further from the version of myself I was building in silence. And yet, I didn't quit. I didn't shout back or try to prove them wrong. I let the results speak. I kept showing up. I kept rising. Because deep down, I wasn't working for their recognition. I was building something they didn't have the clearance to see. It was 300 when the alert came through. A secure message lit up my screen with a red priority tag and a single line. Silent Shield Protocol activated. I was already dressed. In my world, sleep is a luxury, not a guarantee. Within minutes, I was in the SIF, Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility, the secure room where operations like this lived and breathed behind reinforced walls and biometric locks. My team was already there, eyes flicking between data streams and satellite feeds. Operation Silent Shield wasn't public. It never would be. It was a classified mission involving the extraction of a high-value asset and simultaneous delivery of medical supplies to a destabilized border region in the Middle East. I wasn't driving a truck. I was the J4 Director of Logistics for the entire task force. That meant I was coordinating with Central Command, Air Mobility Command, and on-the-ground Special Forces assets in 3 time zones. My job was part air traffic controller, part chess master, part fortune teller. Every aircraft had to be in the right place at the right time, carrying the right gear, with enough fuel to make it back. I stood in front of the mission map, pointing to movement patterns and rerouting C-17s out of Al Udeid. My voice was clear, steady. "We've got a 17-minute ISR blackout starting at 0500 due to sandstorms," I told the room. "If that extraction convoy doesn't cross Route Juliet by 0512, they're exposed. Adjust the drop to grid point, Bravo 3. A 2-star general, Major General Walsh, stood at the head of the table. He looked at me. He nodded without a word and issued the orders. No one second-guessed me. They knew what I brought to the room. By 0430, the entire op was flowing. Convoy Alpha was rolling through with an armored escort, birds were in the air, and the medevac unit had wheels down at the temporary field hospital. In my ear, comms buzzed with real-time updates. "Echo Base, this is Hawk 9, package secure. Moving to the extraction point, Charlie." At 0506, the convoy cleared the danger zone with 6 minutes to spare. In that moment, I didn't think about labels or family BBQs. I thought about the lives we had just protected. The soldiers who would sleep in safety that night because I did the math right. When the operation ended 19 hours later, General Walsh walked past my station. He stopped. He put a hand on my shoulder. "Good work, Major," he said quietly. "You saved their asses tonight." "Just doing the math, General," I replied. He smiled. "It's never just math, Nora. No one in my family would ever hear about Operation Silent Shield. They'd never know that while they joked about supply tents, I had just directed a mission that moved 17,000 pounds of aid and extracted a team under fire. That was fine. They didn't need to know. But I knew. And in my world, that was enough. 3 days after my promotion to major, I stood in my kitchen, holding the little black box with my new rank insignia inside. The gold oak leaf. I didn't take a picture. I didn't call my mom. I just slid the box into my drawer and kept it moving. There was no point in telling them. They didn't know the difference between a lieutenant and a major anyway. Saturday came with sun and the smell of burgers on the grill. Marcus had taken over the backyard like it was a parade ground. His buddies, mostly retired or reserve, circled him with beers in hand and stories flying. I took a seat near the patio edge, watching the sky shift orange over the fence line. Marcus was mid-story, something about jumping off a moving vehicle in training, and they were eating it up. Now and then, he'd throw in a jab at the military's finest spreadsheet warrior. The group howled. I just sipped my drink and waited, not out of pride, out of patience. Because I knew something they didn't. General Walsh, the 2-star general I had served under during Silent Shield, had recently transferred to our region to oversee the Joint Logistics Command. Marcus had met him briefly at a fundraiser and had been bragging all week that he had invited the general to the BBQ. "He's stopping by," Marcus had told everyone. "Old friend of mine, we speak the same language." I didn't tell Marcus that General Walsh was my direct superior. I didn't tell anyone he was coming. My mom sat beside me at one point. "Are you okay, sweetie? You look tired." "I'm fine, Mom. Just a long week." "Still working in that office thing?" she asked. I nodded. "Still there." She smiled and handed me a paper plate with a burger. "Well, at least it's safe. You always liked things organized. Makes sense." I took the plate. The words stuck in my throat, but I swallowed them down with the cheap lemonade. As dusk settled in, a black government sedan approached the driveway. The conversation in the yard died down. Marcus stood up, straightening his polo shirt. That's him. That's the general. Everyone looks sharp. The car door opened. Major General Walsh stepped out. He wasn't in uniform. He was wearing slacks and a blazer, but he carried himself with the undeniable gravity of a man who commanded divisions. Marcus rushed over, hand extended. General, sir, so glad you could make it. Welcome to the humble abode. Walsh shook his hand politely. Good to see you, Marcus. Smells good back here. Marcus beamed. He led the general into the yard, introducing him to the family, like a prize he had won at the fair. This is my dad, my buddies from the Corps. We were just swapping war stories. I stayed back. I was sitting in the shadows of the patio umbrella, wearing my oversized hoodie, holding my water bottle. I watched. I listened. My name didn't come up. Not yet. Not from Marcus, anyway. Walsh was polite, nodding at the stories, accepting a drink, but I saw his eyes scanning the crowd. He wasn't looking for burgers. He was looking for someone specific. Marcus was in the middle of a story about a training exercise. So I told the Sarge, if you want those supplies moved, you better call someone who knows how to drive. He laughed. Not like my sister over there. She'd probably ask for a permission slip first. He pointed at me. The crowd laughed. General Walsh stopped smiling. He followed Marcus's finger. His eyes landed on me. I saw the recognition hit him. He didn't see a girl in a hoodie. He saw the officer who had stood next to him in the SIF for 19 hours straight. He ignored Marcus. He didn't even excuse himself. He just walked away from the grill, moving with a purpose that silenced the entire yard. He walked straight toward me. I stood up. Instinctively, my posture straightened. I set my water down. The yard went deadly silent. Why was the general walking toward the file clerk? Walsh stopped 3 feet from me. He didn't salute. I was in civilian clothes. It would be improper. Instead, he reached out with both hands. He grasped my hand firmly, covering it with his other hand, a gesture of profound respect and familiarity. Nora, he said. His voice was warm, but it carried across the silent yard. My God, I've been leaving messages at your office all week. I smiled. I've been on leave, sir, trying to stay off the grid. Well, you're hard to find, Walsh said. He looked at me with genuine relief. I just got the final report on the Kandahar extraction. The numbers. They're incredible. He turned, slightly, looking back at the group by the grill. He looked at Marcus, who was standing there with his mouth open, holding a spatula. Marcus, Walsh called out, you didn't tell me your sister was Major Bennett. The title hung in the air. Major. Marcus blinked. Major? No, sir. Nora is a captain, and she works in supply. Walsh frowned. He looked from Marcus to me, then back to Marcus. His expression shifted from friendly to confused, and then to something sharper. Supply? Walsh repeated. He laughed, a short, dry sound. Is that what she told you? He turned back to me, shaking his head. You really are the quiet professional, aren't you? He put an arm around my shoulder, turning me toward the group. Marcus, Walsh said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming the voice of a general addressing his troops. Your sister isn't in supply. She is the chief of strategic logistics for Joint Special Operations. My mother gasped. My dad dropped his fork. Walsh continued, relentless. Do you remember that deployment you talked about? The one where your unit got pinned down in the valley and ran out of ammo? Marcus went pale. Yes, sir. That was a bad night. Do you know why the resupply chopper showed up 10 minutes before you were overrun? Walsh asked. Marcus shook his head. We just thought we got lucky. Air Command routed it. Walsh pointed a finger at me. It wasn't luck, Walsh said. It was her. The silence in the backyard was absolute. She rerouted 3 different convoys and grounded a commercial flight corridor to clear the airspace for that chopper, Walsh said. She did it from a command center 4,000 miles away while she was technically off duty. She overrode a colonel's order to get that bird to you. Walsh looked at Marcus. If it wasn't for Nora from Supply, you wouldn't be standing here flipping burgers, son. You'd be a name on a wall. Marcus looked at me. He looked at the sister he had mocked for a decade, the sister he called a paper pusher. He looked at me, and for the first time, he saw the truth. You? He whispered. That was you? I looked at him. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel the need to gloat. I just felt light. I tracked your unit every day you were deployed, Marcus, I said softly. I made sure you had what you needed. Always. My mother was crying. My dad looked like he had been struck by lightning. Walsh patted my shoulder again. Come on, Major, walk me to my car. I need your eyes on a situation in the Pacific. We could use your brain on this one. Of course, sir, I said. I stepped out from under the patio umbrella. I walked past the grill. I walked past Marcus. He didn't make a joke. He didn't laugh. He stood up straighter. As I passed him, he instinctively snapped his heels together. It wasn't a formal salute. It was something more. It was a surrender. I walked the general to his car. We talked shop for a few minutes. Supply lines, fuel constraints, the boring stuff that wins wars. When he drove away, I turned back to the house. The party was quiet. No one was laughing. I didn't go back to the party. I walked to my car. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Thank you. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I got in my car and started the engine. Legacy isn't loud. It doesn't show up with applause or banners. It shows up in the quiet nod from a general, in the silence of a brother who finally understands. For years, I thought I had to prove myself to my family. If I just reached the right rank, they'd see me. But the truth is, I didn't need them to see me. I needed to see myself. I drove away from the BBQ, leaving the burgers and the beer behind. I had work to do, and for the first time, I didn't mind the drive. I am Major Nora Bennett, and I am exactly where I'm supposed to be.